I think that's fantastic. I think that's fine.
You won a Brownlow medal with Adam Goodes. You coached Adam Goodes. Did you watch the game on the weekend, Bucks?
Yep.
A, describe him as a player in your own words, and B, what did you think of his final game?
Well, he was still impacting, wasn't he?
Yeah.
When I was watching, I watched obviously the Fremantle game the week before, and in this game I thought, geez, I hope he doesn't retire because it looks like he can play on. But I suppose that's where you like to finish, with a little bit in the tank rather than hobbling over the line.
He had more in the tank than I thought he had, to be honest.
Well, yeah, he's looked better in the finals games, and potentially that's pride and a real drive to want to. I mean, because he's got the obvious class, and he could have finished off a couple of goals early that would have kept Sydney right in the hunt. And the only way they were going to get back in the game was through him in many ways. But he's been a phenomenal player for a long period of time. I mean, the goings on in the last 12, 24 months have been disappointing, but it's not going to taint what's been a magnificent footy career.
Were you moved when you heard the booing on the heekend, or did you just say, oh, well, he's lot at the lot at the moment?
I'm not listening for it, mate. I'm just watching the bloke play. Why give it any air? And we've given it too much air. I mean, the first thing you read about in the paper or hear on the radio is because you guys are listening for it intently.
It's not us.
You are. You're listening for it intently because it's a story that continues and
I know you don't like us.
I
know you don't like us sometimes.
If it wasn't a headline, we wouldn't be...
But what do we do? Just ignore it? Don't blame the media all the time, mate.
Right. It happens, but you don't have to focus on it heavily.
So we just let it go. So we just let him defend himself. I mean, we've got to be able to help people in life. And sometimes he's out there, and it just feels like North Melbourne just abandoned him. I haven't heard anyone from North Melbourne. The AFL, I just think Goodsy's been abandoned.
Let's help him then and talk about what a great player he was and not talk about something else, mate. Just talk about what a great player he was, because he's been a fantastic player and he's been a great role model, and I think we've got to celebrate that.
Greats of the first 15 years of this century.
You were moved to Ring Talkback Radio today, Roosy, weren't you?
Oh, I got a phone call, and I was on air. It just happened to be after some idiot was on before me, and it was really coincidence because I got asked to speak about him, which I'm more than happy to, even though I coach Melbourne. I mean, he's sort of that sort of player you love talking about because he's such a good person. But I just happened to be on the back of, as I said, some idiot who, it was just extraordinary, the comments that this fella was making. I mean, I just find it amazing when you consider what we've seen in football over so many years and how Adam's been treated and I still don't know why. And there's some people that say, oh, well, he stages for free kicks or he does this or he does that, but that doesn't excuse. I mean, that hasn't happened before. We've seen players do things worse than what Adam's done. And it's just, it's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary.
Yeah. It can't be his story. I mean, in many ways, it's going to be hard to avoid, but it can't be his story. His story is so much bigger and longer and deeper and wider than that is.
And the point I was trying to make today is if you actually meet him, you wouldn't possibly say the things that this guy said about him. You couldn't, because he's just one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet. And I've never spoken to anyone and that's said to me, oh, I met Adam Goodes and, gee, he's an idiot. Yeah, that's right. I mean, and you do that. It's often you would do it, you would Bucks. I mean, some people would come up and say, oh, I met that bloody such and such, and gee, he's a bit of a smart aleck or whatever. Never with Adam. Never.
Brownlow medal, you, Rashudo and Goodsy, 2004-3?
203.
203. Can you remember him in flight at that period of his career?
I think he was still rucking for
periods in there.
I reckon towards the end of his ruck period.
Yeah, and 06 was...
What you got him rucking for?
Yeah, well, he did his knee, and that's when the end of that.
Yeah, I mean, and like to consider that he was a legitimate ruckman for a long period of his career, or early part of his career. But and then he played as a midfielder, wingman.
Were you head-to-head with him ever? Were you? Did you ever? I don't know. Was there periods of time?
No, I don't reckon. No, he was the first one that we set a run with.
Right.
Adam's
against
best
Sydney.
patch of footy was a year that he didn't win the Brownlow. I think it was back into 07 or 08 when he was untouchable. It was
Is this when he was coming off a wing at times?
It was 10 weeks of just unbelievable. He had a poor start to the year, and that's why he didn't win it. But his best patch was about a 10-week patch when he didn't win the Brownlow medal, where you just watched and he was just unbelievable.
the two games coming, West Coast and North Melbourne first. North have embedded themselves now as a final